Go.
Now, you may have wondered at some point, what is all this Haftarah? You might have heard people running around screaming, going, I have to do the Haftarah this week. What am I going to do? Or you may have been in shul, and there's that long bit where they do Torah reading, and you're getting a bit bored, and then they start rolling the Torah up, and you're thinking, woo, almost the bit where they give you cake, and then what happens? They're reading something else in Hebrew. What they're reading is the Haftarah. We need to understand now the history of the Haftarah. In Roman times, feel free to follow me around. Let's get stylish with this building, right? In Roman times, the Romans banned the public reading of the Torah. Now we know that we have not only the Torah, but the Nevi'im and the Ketuvim go right back to the beginning, right? We have all those things. So we have, as you've seen before, on page 6, the 5 books of the Torah, and then the books of the Nevi'im and the books of the Ketuvim. The Romans would not let us publicly read the Torah. Now, every week we read a bit of the Torah, and we were doing it even then. So the rabbi said, they don't like us reading the Torah, but they will not stop us reading the Nevi'im and Ketuvim, because those physically look different. They won't know what we're doing. They won't be able to stop us, and I'm not sure they really want to. So what we'll do is, if we can't read the Torah, we'll look at whatever the parsha is that we would have read, and we'll find a part of the Nevi'im or Ketuvim that has a similar message, that has an idea that relates to it. So, for example, on the week when they read that parsha we were speaking about in the last video, where Yehuda's like, come now, Yosef, I'll smack you down, right? They said, okay, we can't read that parsha, but what we do need to read, we'll find in the Tanach something else. We'll find a bit of Tanach somewhere that talks about that age-long conflict between Yosef and Yehuda. And that's the Haftarah. Now the Romans aren't around to stop us reading the Torah, right, Romans? How you like me now? You're in museums, we're still here. But even though we do read the Torah, we still also read the Haftarah, because it gives us insight into what the parsha is about. It helps us to understand it. So if we look at the Haftarah for that parsha, we'll see something very interesting. We saw how, let's just review, way back in Bereshit, early on in Jewish history, there's Yaakov and his 12 sons, 2 of them being Yosef and Yehuda, who each have a different claim to being the leader. Then hundreds of years later, the Jewish kingdom are established, they've got infrastructure, they're not just a family anymore, they're a nation of millions, but the nation splits apart. Those in the south follow the tribe of Yehuda as their kings, those in the north follow kings from the tribes of Yosef. Now, when we look further on in history, what we see is around that time, during the time of the kings, is when the prophet Ezekiel lived, or in Hebrew called Yechezkel. Now let's just check. Here is why you really need page 7. You don't need to know page 7 by heart, but it is a resource. We want to know, it's just worthwhile, we know that Yosef and Yehuda happens over here in the book of Genesis, Bereshit. We know Rachbam and Yerevam happens over here in the book of Kings. And Ezekiel or Yechezkel talks about that situation. He happens just after the time of the kings. And he gives a prophecy relating to the past and the future. And what does he say in that Haftarah that we read, in that prophecy? He tells us what the third part of the story will be. We know part 1 from Bereshit. We know part 2 from Kings. Part 3 hasn't happened yet. But Yechezkel tells us what part 3 is going to be about. And that's what you see on pages 27 and 28. You see Yechezkel say, okay, Jews, you've got Yehuda, you've got Israel, or you've got Yosef. You've split up, but eventually you will be reunited in the future. And that's what we believe will happen when Mashiach comes. It will be the Jews being reunited. Now, we are all the descendants of Yehuda. Where are the descendants of the other 10 tribes who are ruled by Yosef? We don't know. There are theories about who they are and where they are, but hopefully when Mashiach comes, they'll be revealed. That's one of the jobs of Mashiach, is to reunite the children of Yehuda and Levi with the children of the other 10 tribes. So that's where it ends. So you see a big scale, short explanation of this if you look at page 29. That's what page 29 is doing. Is it's giving you that rough timeline. It's showing you that the origin of the schism between the two happens in the book of Bereshit, long before going to Egypt. It continues in Egypt when Yosef is the ruler of Egypt, pretty much. It then really comes to fruition in the time of the kings, and it eventually gets resolved in the future, spoken about in the book of Yechezkel.